In the dim light of a late evening, the stillness of the world is often accompanied by a sense of calm. Yet, beneath this veneer of tranquility lies an unsettling truth. The human capacity for darkness is as profound as it is terrifying. According to statistics from the FBI, a violent crime occurs every 6 seconds in the United States alone. This staggering figure serves not only as a statistic, but as a harbinger of the chaos that lurks in corners, often unseen. To truly grasp the chilling reality of violent crime, we must delve deeper than numbers. Consider the story of Sarah Collins, a survivor of a brutal home invasion. Her voice quivers as she recounts that fateful night. "I still hear the door shattering," she says, her eyes wide with the memory. "I thought my life was over." Sarah, once a vibrant woman filled with dreams, now navigates a world tinted by fear and anxiety. "I was not just a victim. My family became victims of my trauma," she confides, revealing the ripple effect of violence that stretched far beyond herself. As we embark on this exploration of human darkness, we will confront the uncomfortable truths about our society. We must ask ourselves, how can we acknowledge this darkness while striving for light? The journey will not be easy, but it is necessary. The stories we will uncover, the statistics we will analyze, and the voices we will hear all serve to remind us that violence is not merely an abstract concept. It is a reality that impacts lives, families, and communities. The story of violence often begins in the shadows of childhood, where pain and neglect weave the fabric of a future perpetrator. One such case that haunts the annals of crime is that of Jason Miller, a man whose life spiraled into darkness, culminating in a gruesome act of murder. As we delve into Jason's story, we are compelled to explore not just the horrors of his actions, but also the tumultuous family dynamics that shaped him. Raised in a household marked by dysfunction, Jason was the youngest of 3 siblings. His father, a strict disciplinarian, often resorted to physical punishment, instilling a sense of fear rather than love. "I never knew what would set him off," Jason once reflected during an interview with Dr. Emily Carver, a psychologist who specializes in violent offenders. "It felt like walking on eggshells every day." This fear was compounded by his mother's emotional absence, as she battled her own demons of addiction. As we unravel Jason's psyche, we discover a young boy longing for acceptance, but finding solace only in anger. "Anger was my release," he confessed. "It felt powerful, unlike anything else in my life." This sentiment echoes a dangerous truth. For many individuals like Jason, the seeds of violence are nurtured in childhood experiences of trauma and neglect. To further understand Jason's motives, we turn to Dr. Carver, who offers insight into the psychological profiles of violent offenders. "Many are products of their environment," she explains, seated comfortably in her office, surrounded by books on criminology. "They often struggle with feelings of abandonment and betrayal, which can manifest in acts of aggression." Her words resonate as we consider the chilling reality of Jason's eventual crime, a brutal murder that shocked an entire community. On that fateful night, Jason's pent-up rage exploded, leading him to commit an act of violence that would forever alter the lives of his victim's family. "I didn't think it was real until it was too late," he later stated, his voice tinged with regret. His actions, a culmination of years of emotional turmoil, left behind a wake of devastation that rippled through the lives of those left behind. As we reflect on Jason's story, it is crucial to examine not only the crime itself, but also the societal structures that contribute to such tragedies. We need to break the cycle, Dr. Carver emphasizes. Understanding the roots of violence is essential in preventing future occurrences. Her perspective serves as a reminder that while the abyss of human darkness may be daunting, it is through understanding that we can begin to illuminate the path toward healing. The case of Jason Miller is not just an isolated incident. It is a reflection of a broader societal issue: the failure to recognize and address the complexities of trauma and violence. As we continue our exploration of human darkness, we must confront these uncomfortable truths and consider our collective responsibility in addressing the conditions that lead to such heinous acts. As we delve deeper into the murky waters of human behavior, we encounter the complex psychological profiles of violent offenders. Understanding these profiles is not merely an academic exercise. It is essential for preventing future tragedies like that of Jason Miller. By examining the common traits and mental health issues that often plague these individuals, we can begin to unravel the enigma of their actions and, hopefully, forge a path toward rehabilitation and understanding. One prominent figure in the field is Dr. Alice Rivera, a mental health advocate who dedicates her life to working with offenders. "I believe that everyone deserves a chance to change," she says, her voice steady and compassionate during our interview. Many of these individuals are not inherently evil. They are products of their environment and experiences. Dr. Rivera's work focuses on providing therapy and support to those who have committed violent acts, helping them confront their traumas and redirect their lives. Take Jason, for instance. She continues, her expression somber. If someone had intervened earlier in his life, perhaps he wouldn't have spiraled into violence. But the system often fails these individuals before they even reach adulthood. This sentiment echoes the broader societal stigma surrounding mental illness, which perpetuates misunderstanding and fear. We often label these offenders as monsters, but they are human beings with struggles that are often overlooked, Dr. Rivera emphasizes. To illustrate this point, we can look at the traits commonly found among violent offenders. Research indicates that many share experiences of childhood trauma, social isolation, and untreated mental health issues. A study published in the Journal of Forensic Psychology suggests that individuals who experience early life adversity, such as abuse or neglect, are significantly more likely to engage in violent behavior later in life. This is not to excuse their actions, Dr. Rivera clarifies, but to understand the roots of their behavior. During our conversation, Dr. Rivera recounts a poignant story of a young man named Marcus who had been incarcerated for a violent crime. He was raised in a neighborhood where violence was rampant, and his father was in and out of prison, she explains. After working with him for several months, I discovered that he had never learned healthy coping mechanisms. Anger was his only outlet. With support and therapy, Marcus began to recognize his patterns and, over time, transformed his life. It's a long road, she admits, but it's possible. Yet, the stigma surrounding mental illness often hinders progress. Society frequently views those with mental health issues as dangerous, perpetuating a cycle of fear and misunderstanding. When I tell people I work with offenders, I can see the judgment in their eyes, Dr. Rivera reflects. But we need to shift the narrative. Understanding mental health is critical to addressing crime effectively. As we contemplate the profiles of violent offenders, we are reminded of the importance of empathy and understanding. By acknowledging their struggles and advocating for mental health care, we can foster an environment that encourages healing rather than punishment. We need to break the stigma, Dr. Rivera concludes, because only then can we hope to prevent the next tragedy. The journey into understanding the psychological profiles of violent offenders reveals not just the darkness within them, but also the societal failures that allow such violence to flourish. Just as Jason Miller's story serves as a cautionary tale, the narratives of those like Marcus, and the insights of advocates like Dr. Rivera offer a glimmer of hope. It is our responsibility to ensure that we do not turn a blind eye to the complexities of mental health and its profound impact on crime. As we shift our focus from the minds of violent offenders to the lives shattered by their actions, we begin to uncover the profound and often devastating effects of violent crime on victims' families and communities. The ripples of such violence spread far beyond the initial act, leaving scars that can last a lifetime. To truly grasp this impact, we must listen to the voices of those who have been directly affected. During my conversations with families of victims, I was struck by the raw pain and resilience that emerged in their testimonies. Take, for instance, Maria Thompson, whose son, Daniel, was a victim of a random act of violence. "Every day feels like a struggle," she shared, her voice trembling as she recalled the night that changed her life forever. Daniel was just walking home from work, and in an instant he was gone. It's a void that can never be filled. Maria's story is not an isolated incident. It mirrors the experiences of countless families who grapple with the aftermath of violence. The emotional toll is immense, often leading to a complex web of grief, anger, and confusion. People assume that time heals all wounds. Maria continued, wiping away tears. But the truth is, it's a different kind of pain every day. You learn to live with it, but you never move on. The impact of violent crime extends beyond the immediate family. Communities also feel the repercussions, as fear and distrust can permeate neighborhoods long after the event. To illustrate this point, I spoke with David Shun, a community leader in a city that has experienced a surge in violent crime. When violence strikes, it doesn't just affect the victim. It changes the fabric of the community, he explained. People start looking over their shoulders, and that sense of safety evaporates. In response to this pervasive fear, various community initiatives have emerged to support those affected by violence. Organizations such as Healing Together work tirelessly to provide resources for victims and their families. They offer counseling, support groups, and workshops aimed at rebuilding trust within the community. The goal is to create a safe space where people can share their stories and heal together, said Sarah, a social worker involved in the initiative. It's about fostering solidarity in the face of despair. During a recent community meeting, I witnessed firsthand the power of shared experiences. Victims' families gathered to share their journeys, from the initial shock of loss to the ongoing struggles with mental health and social stigma. I thought I was alone in this, Maria reflected during the meeting. But seeing others here, I realize we're all fighting the same battle. This collective healing is crucial in combating the isolation that often accompanies violent crime. Through these initiatives, community leaders like David and dedicated advocates like Sarah are not only helping victims, but also working towards transforming a culture of fear into one of support and resilience. As we reflect on the ripple effect of violent crime, we are reminded of the importance of compassion and community action. The stories of Maria, Daniel, and countless others serve as a poignant reminder that the effects of violence extend far and wide, affecting not just individuals, but entire communities. It is our responsibility to listen, to support, and to advocate for those left in the wake of such tragedies, ensuring that no one has to navigate their pain alone. As we delve deeper into the complexities surrounding violent crime, it becomes imperative to examine the legal ramifications of such heinous acts and how society grapples with the fallout. The aftermath of violence not only leaves scars on individuals and families, but also ignites fervent discussions about justice, accountability, and reform within our legal systems. One of the most controversial trials in recent years was that of Jason Reynolds, a young man accused of a brutal assault that left a local woman, Sarah Mitchell, fighting for her life. The case captured national attention, largely due to the graphic nature of the crime and the perceived failures of the justice system. During the trial, emotions ran high as both sides presented their narratives. This isn't just about Jason. It's about how we treat victims in our society, Sarah's sister, Emily, passionately stated during a press conference following the trial. Every day, we hear stories of violence, but how many of them lead to real change? The courtroom became a battleground for conflicting ideologies. While the prosecution aimed to highlight the irreversible damage inflicted on Sarah and her family, the defense argued for compassion, citing Jason's troubled upbringing and mental health struggles. We have to consider the whole person, Jason's attorney contended. What led him to this point? Can we not find a way to address the root causes of violence rather than simply punishing the symptoms? This trial not only sparked outrage, but also ignited a broader conversation about the effectiveness of the criminal justice system. Activists took to the streets, advocating for reforms aimed at addressing systemic issues that contribute to violent behavior. Among them was Clara Rodriguez, a passionate advocate for criminal justice reform. We cannot ignore the fact that our systems often fail those who need help the most, she asserted during a rally. Instead of locking people away, we should be investing in prevention and rehabilitation. Clara's organization, Justice for All, has been instrumental in bringing attention to the need for mental health resources, community programs, and restorative justice initiatives. It's about understanding that behind every statistic is a real person with a story, she explained in an interview. We need to shift our focus from punishment to healing, both for victims and offenders. The dialogue surrounding the Reynolds trial and the responses it provoked reveal a society at a crossroads. On one hand, there's a yearning for justice and closure for victims. On the other, there's a growing recognition that effective change must encompass compassion and understanding. As we reflect on the responses to such cases, it's essential to acknowledge the emotional toll it takes on victims' families, like Emily, who are left wrestling with the complexities of their own grief while advocating for systemic change. It's exhausting, Emily admitted during a discussion with fellow advocates. We want justice for Sarah, but we also want to ensure that this doesn't keep happening. How do we hold people accountable without perpetuating a cycle of violence? The conversation must continue beyond the courtroom. With activists like Clara leading the charge for reform, and families like Emily's pushing for recognition of the victim's pain, there exists a glimmer of hope for a more empathetic approach to justice. The societal response to violent crime is evolving, moving toward a model that seeks not only to punish, but to understand and heal. As we navigate through these legal discussions, let us remember the stories behind the headlines. The journey towards justice is not merely about the scales tipping in favor of one side or the other. It is a collective movement toward a more compassionate society that acknowledges the complexities of crime and its far-reaching impacts. In the aftermath of the trial that rocked their community, the discussions did not end in the courtroom. Instead, they spilled into the streets, homes, and cafes as people grappled with the complex emotions surrounding violent crime. The case of Jason Reynolds and Sarah Mitchell had forced many to confront uncomfortable truths about justice and the human condition. It was a moment ripe for reflection, particularly on the importance of empathy for all involved, victims, offenders, and society as a whole. One voice that emerged amidst the chaos was that of Marcus Caldwell, a former offender who had spent years in prison for a violent crime. Now an advocate for understanding and rehabilitation, Marcus shared his story in the hopes of bridging the gap between those who have suffered and those who have caused suffering. People see me as a monster for what I did, Marcus reflected during a community seminar. But I'm more than just my past. I want to be a voice for change. His journey to redemption was fraught with challenges, but he found purpose in sharing his experiences. When I was in prison, I met so many people who had stories like mine, stories of trauma, neglect, and despair. We need to address the root causes of violence instead of simply punishing the symptoms, he urged, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Empathy is the first step to understanding why people commit such acts. If we can see the person behind the crime, maybe we can prevent future violence. The audience listened intently as Marcus recounted his own struggles with addiction and the circumstances that led him to commit his crime. I wasn't born this way, he said. I was shaped by my environment, by the lack of support and the stigma surrounding mental health. We can't ignore these factors if we want to create real change. This call for empathy resonated with many, especially in light of the philosophical debates surrounding punishment versus rehabilitation. Dr. Linda Schwartz, a criminologist who had been following the Reynolds case closely, provided her insights during a panel discussion. The justice system often leans towards punitive measures, but studies show that rehabilitation is more effective in reducing recidivism, she explained. We need to ask ourselves, what do we want from our justice system? Do we want revenge, or do we want to heal? As the conversation deepened, an underlying tension emerged. Emily, who had valiantly fought for justice for her sister, spoke up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I understand the need for empathy, but what about the victims? How do we ensure they're not forgotten in this process? Her voice trembled, carrying the weight of her family's pain. That's a valid point, Emily, Marcus replied gently, recognizing the complexity of her emotions. Victims deserve support and understanding too. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about creating a system that acknowledges the suffering of both sides. We can't heal as a society if we only focus on punishment. The dialogue continued, revealing the multifaceted nature of crime and its impact on individuals and communities. Attendees began to share their own stories, creating a tapestry of lived experiences that underscore the need for a more compassionate approach to justice. As the discussion unfolded, a sense of mutual understanding started to blossom, fostering a space where healing could begin. The importance of empathy in the face of horror became clear. It was not a simple or easy path, but perhaps the only way forward. While the scars of violence run deep, the willingness to understand and support each other could pave the way for a more just and compassionate society. As we consider the implications of crime and punishment, let us remember that behind every statistic and every headline, there exists a human story, a story that deserves to be heard and understood. As the echoes of Marcus Caldwell's impassioned plea for empathy faded from the community seminar, the reality of ongoing violence remained a pressing concern. The scars of previous crimes lingered in the minds of many, serving as a stark reminder of the struggle against the darker aspects of human nature. In this chapter, we explore the enduring legacy of violent crimes and the crucial need to raise awareness to combat them. Across the nation, organizations dedicated to violence prevention and victim support have emerged, tirelessly working to mend the fabric of communities torn apart by crime. One such organization is Safe Haven, which provides counseling and resources for victims and their families. During a recent event held at a local community center, I had the opportunity to speak with Ava Martinez, the director of Safe Haven. We focus on empowering victims, she explained, her voice filled with conviction. It's not just about providing immediate support. We want to help them reclaim their lives and find a sense of safety again. Ava's passion is evident as she recounts stories of resilience. One of our clients, Lisa, lost her brother to gun violence. She felt lost and hopeless, but through our programs, she found her voice. Now, she advocates for change in her community, pushing for stricter gun laws and better mental health resources for youths. Ava said, her eyes shining with pride for those she helps. Lisa's journey exemplifies the power of turning pain into purpose. This narrative of transformation is echoed by community leaders who are tirelessly working to improve safety and compassion in their neighborhoods. I met with Mayor Thomas Reed, a staunch advocate for violence prevention initiatives. We can't afford to be complacent, he asserted during our conversation. Every violent crime is a failure of our society to support its most vulnerable members. We need to engage our youth and provide them with alternatives to violence. Mayor Reed has implemented several community programs aimed at youth engagement. Our Youth Empowerment Initiative has reached over 500 teenagers this year alone. He shared his enthusiasm palpable. We offer mentorship, job training, and educational workshops to guide them toward a brighter future. It's an investment in our community's safety and well-being. The importance of community engagement cannot be overstated, as it fosters a sense of solidarity and shared responsibility. When people come together to support one another, it creates a ripple effect, Ava remarked. Prevention is about building relationships and trust within the community. The more connected we are, the less likely we are to see acts of violence. However, the challenges are numerous, and there are still voices that echo the struggles of those left behind. During a community meeting, a mother named Rachel stood up, her hands trembling as she addressed the audience. "I lost my son to violence 2 years ago," she began, her voice breaking. "I felt abandoned, like nobody cares. We need to do more for the families affected by these crimes. We need support groups. We need to be heard." Rachel's plea resonated deeply, reminding us that behind every statistic lies a human story. The work of organizations like Safe Haven and the efforts of leaders like Mayor Reed are crucial, but it is clear that we must continue to amplify the voices of those impacted by violence. As we reflect on the ongoing struggle against violence, let us remember that awareness is the first step toward change. We must educate ourselves and others about the resources available, the stories of resilience and hope, and the need to foster compassion in our communities. Only then can we work together to create an environment where violence is not an option and healing can take root. As the community gathered once more, a palpable sense of determination filled the air. The echoes of despair had not vanished, but they were accompanied by a newfound hope that refused to be extinguished. In the wake of heart-wrenching stories shared in previous discussions, the question now loomed large. How can we, as individuals and a community, contribute to the healing process and foster a safer environment for all? Ava Martinez, the director of Safe Haven, stood at the forefront of this movement. "Hope is not just a feeling, it's an action," she declared, her voice steady and resolute. Each of us has a role to play, whether it's volunteering, advocating for policy changes, or simply lending an ear to someone in need. These actions create ripples of positive change. During the seminar, a panel of community leaders and advocates gathered to discuss the importance of individual responsibility in combating violence. Mayor Reed initiated the conversation, his tone earnest. "We must ask ourselves, what can I do to make a difference?" It starts with awareness, but it doesn't end there. It's about taking tangible steps toward change. The crowd listened intently as a former offender, Marcus Caldwell, shared his journey of transformation. "I was once lost in a life of violence," he admitted, his voice filled with humility. But I realized that change is possible, not just for me, but for everyone. We need to break the cycle and support one another in this process. His words resonated deeply, reminding the audience that redemption is not just for the fortunate. It's a possibility for all who seek it. A hand shot up from the audience, belonging to an engaged young woman named Mia. "What if we don't know where to start?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "How can we make a real impact?" Ava smiled warmly, recognizing the sincerity behind the question. "Start small. Engage with local organizations, attend community meetings, or even just have conversations with your peers about these issues. Change begins with dialogue and understanding. We all have the power to influence those around us." The discussion continued, delving into actionable steps that attendees could take. Advocacy is crucial, Mayor Reed emphasized. Join campaigns that resonate with you, whether it's for mental health resources, youth programs, or victim support. Your voice matters, and when we unite, we amplify our message. As the seminar drew to a close, a sense of camaraderie enveloped the room. The final question posed by Ava hung in the air like a gentle reminder. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Will you be a part of the solution, or will you stand by in silence? The audience left with a renewed sense of purpose, each individual carrying the weight of responsibility to enact change. As they stepped into the world outside, the glimmer of hope transformed into a collective commitment to compassion, understanding, and action. In conclusion, while the shadows of violence may loom large, they do not define us. It is our response to these challenges that will shape the future. Let us choose to be advocates of hope, embracing our shared humanity and striving towards a brighter, safer tomorrow.